I am 78 years old. If you look at the statistics, I am in the final chapter. And nearly every time I meet someone new or catch up with an old acquaintance at the grocery store, they ask me the same thing. It is usually whispered with a look of pity in their eyes. They ask, "Arthur, don't you want a partner?" "Arthur, isn't the house too big for just one person? Wouldn't it be nice to have someone to share your morning coffee with?" I understand why they ask. We are programmed to believe that being alone means being broken. We are told that the ultimate goal of the human experience is to be part of a pair. So 5 years ago, when I was 73, I listened to them. I opened my door. I let someone in. And I am going to tell you the truth that nobody wants to admit at dinner parties. I have never been more exhausted, more anxious, and more spiritually drained than I was when I was in a relationship. Let me back up a bit. My wife, Elena, passed away when I was 68. It was cancer. It was a long 2 years of hospitals and hospice, and holding her hand while she slowly faded. When she finally let go, the silence in the house was deafening. It was not just quiet. It was heavy. For the first year, I was a ghost in my own home. I sat in her chair. I watched the television without turning it on. I felt like half of a person. But then time did what time does. It healed the sharp edges. I started to find a routine. I am a retired engineer, so I like systems. I set up a wood shop in the garage. I started waking up at 5:30 in the morning. I would make a pot of black coffee, sit on the back porch, and watch the sun come up over the oak trees. No talking, no news, just the birds and the steam rising from my cup. It became my sanctuary. I started building furniture. I fixed the squeaky step on the stairs. I read books on history that I had meant to read for 40 years. By the time I turned 72, I realized something surprising. I was content. I was not jumping for joy, but I was steady. I had peace. But the world does not like to see an old man alone. My daughter Sarah is a wonderful woman, but she is a fixer. She would come over for Sunday dinner and look at me with those worried eyes. She would say, "Dad, you are isolating yourself. Dad, humans are social creatures. You are going to wither away in this garage." Then came the neighbor, Mrs. Higgins. She cornered me while I was getting the mail. She told me about her friend Sylvia. Sylvia was 70, a retired nurse, lively, drove a red car. "You have to meet her, Arthur." She said, "You too would be perfect." And you know, when enough people tell you that you are incomplete, you start to believe them. You start to look at your quiet life and think, maybe I am doing this wrong. Maybe this piece is actually just stagnation. So I agreed. I met Sylvia for coffee, and I will be honest with you, it was nice. Sylvia was full of energy. She had a laugh that could fill a room. She asked me about my woodworking. She complimented my shirt. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Not as a grandfather, not as a widower, but as a man. We went on a second date, then a third. By the fourth month, we were, as the young people say, an item. Everyone was thrilled. My daughter was relieved. My neighbors gave me the thumbs up. Arthur has got a girlfriend. Good for him. And in the beginning, it was good. We went to the theater. We tried new Italian restaurants. I put on my nice slacks and shaved every day. It felt like I was living a second youth. But then the reality of merging two lives at 73 years old began to set in. And it was not the big things. It was the 1,000 little things. It started with the phone. Before Sylvia, my phone was a tool. It sat on the kitchen counter. I used it to call the plumber or check the weather. With Sylvia, the phone became a leash. She loved to text. "Good morning." "What are you doing?" "Thinking of you." "Look at this picture of my cat." If I did not reply within 20 minutes, she would call, "Is everything okay?" "You didn't answer." I found myself carrying the phone in my pocket. Even when I was in the workshop, I would be in the middle of sanding a beautiful piece of cherry wood in the flow, completely at peace, and then buzz, buzz, buzz. The interruption would snap me out of my focus. My shoulders would tighten. I started to feel a low-level anxiety, a constant vigilance. I was no longer the master of my own time. Then there was the energy deficit. This is something people in their 40s or 50s might not fully grasp yet. When you are 73, your energy is a finite resource. It is like a battery that does not hold a charge as well as it used to. I cherished my afternoons. After lunch, I liked to sit in my chair, read a chapter of a book, and maybe close my eyes for 20 minutes. It was how I reset. Sylvia did not operate that way. She had a nervous energy. She wanted to go to the outlet mall on Tuesdays. She wanted to drive an hour to see a botanical garden on Thursdays. She wanted to host dinner parties on Saturdays. I would come home from these excursions completely depleted. My knees would ache. My brain would feel like fog. I would tell her, "Sylvia, I need to rest today." And she would look at me with this hurt expression. She would say, "Arthur, we are burning daylight." We don't have that much time left. We should be living. She made me feel guilty for being old. She made me feel guilty for wanting stillness. I found myself saying yes to things I hated just to avoid the conversation about how I was being boring. I was performing happiness while my internal battery was flashing red. Let's talk about the finances. This is the taboo subject. I worked hard for 40 years as an engineer. I saved. I have a pension and my Social Security, but I live on a budget. I know exactly how much I can spend to ensure I never become a burden to my children. My life before Sylvia was inexpensive. I cooked at home. I drank water. I bought tools occasionally. Dating at 73 is expensive. Sylvia liked to eat out 3 times a week. 50 here, 8 out there. She liked the theater. She liked weekend trips to bed and breakfast. $150 a night, plus gas, plus meals. After 6 months, I looked at my bank account and I felt a cold spike of fear. I was dipping into my savings. I was spending money that was meant for my potential long-term care or for my grandchildren. I tried to bring it up. I said to Sylvia, we need to scale back. Can we just cook dinner here? She said, oh, Arthur, you can't take it with you. Stop being a miser. But it wasn't about being a miser. It was about security. It was about the fact that I cannot go out and get another job at 73. This money is all there is. I lay awake at night doing mental math, calculating inflation, worrying about the cost of a new roof. The peace I had built was being eaten away by financial anxiety. The breaking point came 8 months into the relationship. It was July. Sylvia had decided we needed to redecorate my living room, she said. My leather armchair, the one I had sat in for 15 years, the one that molded perfectly to my back, was an eyesore. She bought throw pillows. She moved my books. She put scented candles on every surface. My house started to smell like vanilla and lavender. It didn't smell like wood and old paper anymore. It didn't smell like me. One Saturday morning, I walked into the kitchen to make my coffee. It was 6 in the morning. Usually this is my sacred time, but Sylvia had stayed over. She was already up clattering. Dishes, playing the news on the radio at full volume. She started talking to me about her niece's wedding before I had even taken a sip of coffee. She was talking about flights and hotels and what color tie I should wear. I stood there holding my mug and I looked around my kitchen and I felt like a stranger. I felt crowded. I felt suffocated. I realized that in my effort not to be lonely, I had completely abandoned myself. I was living someone else's life on someone else's schedule, spending money I wasn't comfortable spending to please a woman who didn't actually like who I was. She liked the idea of me. She liked having a companion, but she didn't like my silence. She didn't respect my need for solitude. I ended it 2 days later. It was not easy. There were tears. She told me I was making a mistake. She told me I was going to die alone and bitter. My daughter was disappointed. She said, Dad, she was trying so hard. But the moment Sylvia drove out of my driveway for the last time, I walked back into my house. I turned off the radio and I sat in my old leather chair and the silence washed over me like a warm bath. It was the most beautiful feeling I've ever experienced. That was 5 years ago. I am 78 now. I have not been on a date since, and I have no intention of ever doing it again. And I want to tell you what I have learned, because if you are 60 or 65 or 70, people are lying to you about what happiness looks like. First, you have to understand the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is a feeling of lack. It is a pain. Solitude is a state of being. It is a glory. When I was with Sylvia, I was never alone. But I was incredibly lonely because I could not hear my own thoughts. Now I am alone almost all day, but I am not lonely. I am full. I am full of my projects, my books, my thoughts, and the simple rhythm of a day that belongs entirely to me. Second, at this age, peace is the most valuable currency you have. It is worth more than money. It is worth more than excitement. It is worth more than validation. When you invite someone into your life, you are inviting in their chaos, their family drama, their health issues, their financial expectations, and their neurosis. When you are 30, you have the energy to process that chaos. When you are 78, you do not. You have earned the right to a calm harbor. I have a friend, George. He is 80. He got remarried last year to a woman 10 years younger. I see him at the hardware store. He looks tired. He tells me about the cruises he has to go on. He tells me about the arguments over the thermostat. He tells me he misses his old dog, that his new wife made him give away because she was allergic. He has a ring on his finger, but he has lost the sparkle in his eye. He traded his freedom for the appearance of not being alone. There is a dignity in handling your own life. I wake up when I want. I eat what I want. If I want to spend 3 days working on a birdhouse without speaking to a soul, I do it. I am not accountable to anyone's emotional state but my own. And yes, sometimes on Christmas Eve or when I see a couple holding hands in the park, I feel a momentary pang, a little twinge, but I let it pass because I know the cost of that hand holding. I know the price of admission, and I am no longer willing to pay it. So, to those of you listening who are feeling the pressure, maybe you are divorced or widowed or have always been single and you have friends telling you to get on the apps to get out there, I am giving you permission to stop. I am giving you permission to say no. Thank you. You are not a failure because you are alone. You are not incomplete. If you find someone who fits into your peace without disrupting it, that is a miracle. Grab it. But do not tear your life apart trying to fit a square peg into a round hole just because you are afraid of the quiet. The quiet is not your enemy. The quiet is where you finally meet yourself. And at 78, I have found that I am actually pretty good company. Don't let the fear of dying alone force you to live in a way that makes you wish you were dead. Reclaim your space, reclaim your time, reclaim your money, and most importantly, reclaim your peace. It is the only thing we get to keep until the very end. Music. If this story struck a chord with you, if you understand the value of a quiet morning and a life lived on your own terms, please do me a favor. Click that subscribe button for this channel. Like this video so others' music can find it. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Are you embracing the solitude or are you still searching? Let's talk about